Are you hiring? With Indeed, you can post a job in minutes, set up screener questions, then zero in on your short list of qualified candidates using an online dashboard. Get started today at Indeed.com/podcast. That's Indeed.com/podcast.
Glad you're with us. Golic and Wingo on ESPN Radio and ESPN News, presented by Progressive Insurance. All phone guests join us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. And again, a lot of what's going on today has been what happened at Ohio State, what didn't happen at Ohio State, what should have happened in your mind at Ohio State, or what should not have happened at Ohio State with what happened to Urban Meyer and Athletic Director Gene Smith, a 3-game suspension for both of them to start the football season.
This is, listen, there's two separate things here. Is the optics of that press conference, and then
which were terrible.
Then they were terrible. They were terrible. Urban Meyer read his statement. He couldn't read it fast enough, and then he sat down and he looked like a person. Obviously, he wouldn't want to be there under these conditions. But I firmly believe that he doesn't think he did anything worthy of suspension, and thought he would be on the practice field today. And for what they suspended him for, and we'll get into it, I would almost agree with why was he suspended. But as you go through, again, the 23-page report that was given to everybody afterward.
Right.
Would have been nice to see about that before. There would have been some different questions.
Correct.
Because there are some, as we'll point out, some real inaccuracies of what the board found out and what they flat out don't believe with Urban Meyer.
Right.
Now, you could sit there and say, should he be suspended for those things? It's not what the paragraph of why he was suspended was listed as the reason he was suspended for 3 games. But if you go through where they basically say this is what Urban said, and basically the board saying, well, we think a little differently, we think this, you go, wow, there was some things where they just flat out didn't believe Urban. But was that enough still for a suspension where they just frustrated with the inconsistencies that they thought and said, we don't think we can fire him or should fire him, but there's got to be something because there's just too much going on here, or just let him go back on the practice field. Now, continue to say, if this is a 500% winning coach,
he's gone.
He's gone.
No question.
He's gone. They're going to come out and they would have slammed their fist down and said, "We take this seriously. This coach is not our guy anymore." But when you're 73-8, this I've said this forever about professional athletes. The better you are, the more leash you get. It's true for coaches as well.
Correct.
I mean, it just is. It's true in the real world. If you're an employee that helps your company make more money than some other employees, guess what? You're going to get a longer leash.
Correct.
It's the way it works.
It's the way it always is.
It's the way it works, and I think that worked in this situation to a point.
Yeah, we'll get back to this in a few minutes with someone who is very close to the program. We'll have that for you in just a little bit. This hour of Golic and Wingo brought to you by La Quinta Inns and Suites. Book at LQ.com and win at business. And let's start with trending with what we were talking about with Phil. Somebody's going to win $9 million. Phil thinks it's going to be the easiest $9 million he's ever made because the Tiger versus Phil match play showdown is finally officially official. November 23rd, the Friday of Thanksgiving week. $9 million. The match will be at Shadow Creek Course in Las Vegas. The event will be televised on a pay-per-view by Turner's Bleacher Report live platform, in addition to DirecTV and ATD Universe. Pricing has not been set. I'm not paying $9 million, but I am buying that.
You're buying that?
Absolutely. Are you?
Where do you think they'll put the price at? I think it can't be too high, right?
Right, $60 maybe.
You think it'll be that much?
Yeah, well, listen, people that like golf, the advertisers, what do you see advertise on golf? A lot of high-end products.
Yeah.
I mean, it's people with disposable income. I'm curious.
I'll be interested at what price they will set that at. But, I'll buy. I want to see that. I think it'll be fun. I wish it was something different than the $9 million.
Like their own money?
Oh, I wish it was their own money, or B, the ones caddying for the other.
That would be the best.
When we had Michael Collins on and talking about this, we'll have him on tomorrow when we're at the tournament. The talk was to caddy at the par 3 at the Masters next year.
That would have been great.
I think it would have been fantastic. Yeah. The $9 million, one's worth over $800 million, the other's worth over $400 million. I'm not saying I'm sneezing at $9 million, but I bet, makes it a little more interesting if it were $4.5 million of their own money each.
Correct. And you mentioned Michael Collins, our ESPN Analyst, former caddy, had a chance to catch up with Phil and talk to him about this showdown with Tiger.
For many years, he's gotten the better of me, but Friday night, it's going to be the easiest $10 million I've ever made.
So what everyone keeps asking me, smack talk.
I'm okay at it.
Is there a farm around here? I smell bull.
I'm not opposed to it at all.
Of course you're not. You're one of the best smack talkers out there.
Thank you.
So how are you going to, what's your approach, mentally, how are you going to get in there with the little needle?
We have plenty of time to do that, and I've got to be careful because I'm hoping that we are teammates in the Ryder Cup, and I don't want to cause a stir yet, but in the first week of October, it will start to heat up.
It'll heat up.
Well, it is. And listen, there's plenty of time. You have the FedEx thing going on until, September 20th?
Right.
Then you have the Ryder Cup at the end of September. There's plenty of time. That's over a month and a half of build-up toward this matchup that they'll have at the beginning of October until that third week in November around Thanksgiving or Thanksgiving weekend for this to go on. It'll be a lot of fun to talk about. So I'm looking forward to it, no doubt.
Absolutely. There will be side bets allowed, closest to the pin, all that kind of stuff. And so we'll see what happens. Meanwhile, this story, Cowboys center Travis Frederick, maybe one of the best, if not the best center in the game, has been out for a while. He announced yesterday that he has an autoimmune disease. Right. The Pro Bowl player announced he's suffering from Guillain-Barré syndrome, or Barré syndrome. He was diagnosed with the disease after exhaustive tests conducted over the last few days and has received treatment in the last 48 hours. It's not known if he will be able to play this season, which would obviously be a huge blow to the Cowboys' offensive line, but first and foremost, the health of Travis Frederick is what's important here.
Feels like they caught it. He was talking about how early they did catch it, and that should help, but absolutely zero timetable on when he could step back on the field. And, of course, from his health side, you're right. That is the most important thing. The football side of it, if you look at it, that has been without question, best strength of this team. But you have Tyron Smith, the left tackle, had some injury issues last year. You saw Zach Martin go down in the last preseason game with a hyperextended knee, and now you're not sure when you have your center back. From a football side, the best part of their team has some issues to it, but the more important side of it is it does seem that they caught this early enough and that in time he will be okay. And so the last thing you need to worry about is when he's going to put on pads and be the center for the Cowboys again. First and foremost, get healthy.
Yeah, listen, it's a weird disease where the body begins to attack its own nerves,
right,
and it causes weakness. And if you're thinking, wow, how can anyone play in the NFL with this? Our old buddy did, Mark Schlereth. He was diagnosed with Guillain-Barré disease in 1993. He was sick for a very long time, missed the second half of the 93 season, and was still regaining he says in a tweet, I was still regaining my strength into the second half of 94. Lost all the feeling in my arms and legs for the better part of 6 months. So, look, the good news is they caught it early. They believe it's treatable, but you need to understand this is going to be a long-term process for Travis Frederick to get back onto the field, but it can be done. In fact, Stink went on after this to win 2 Super Bowls, starting after dealing with this disease for the Denver Broncos. So, we're glad to see that happen that way for Mark, and we're certainly hopeful that will turn out that way for Travis Frederick as well. But again, it is going to be a long, long process. Well, it was a long, long day at Ohio State yesterday, Mike, as they deliberated in an executive session for 11 hours before coming up with the decision to suspend both head football coach Urban Meyer and athletic director Gene Smith for 3 games following it's interesting to sort of parse why they suspended him. Basically, they didn't feel they did everything they should have done, but they didn't feel like they did enough to merit being fired.
Right.
That's the best way to describe it.
Yeah,
right?
It's many people think it's a slap on the wrist. I thought it would go one way or the other. Either he's fired or he's back on the practice field today. You see a few more inconsistencies in the report, but for the reason they suspended him, I think it's still a little bit of a head scratcher.
All right, so what do we make of all this? So let's bring in someone who is very familiar with all of this. It's former Ohio State linebacker James Laurinaitis, who follows us on ESPN Radio every morning in Columbus, 97.1 on The Fan. He joins us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance line, taking synthetic motor oil performance to a whole new level. Make the switch to Pennzoil Synthetics today. James, first and foremost, thanks for being with us. What was your takeaway from what we saw yesterday?
Well, thanks for having me on. I think my takeaway, to be honest, is just a little more confusion. I heard you guys talking on the show just before I came on, and I agree with you, Mike. I thought it was going to be one way or the other. I think consistently on our show and the feeling around town was we thought the report would come out that it'd be a little more black and white. Either Urban Meyer covered up domestic violence or he didn't. And what's kind of the role of the head football coach in all of this. And I'm still trying to page through kind of the 20-something pages of the report. You read all the bullet points and you're trying to figure everything out. But there's still some confusion, to be quite honest with you, about everything. And some really interesting just language in it. the whole thing about, look, he didn't lie, but he wasn't truthful. I'm not as smart as all the people on that investigative team with how the language all plays out. But if anything, I think Columbus itself is more confused today, just based on the report.
The word Mary Jo White, who headed up that committee, used was falsely stated, which it seems is another term for lying, but they don't want to say. Listen, these are smart people that know how to use words. There's no doubt about that. James, as far as this whole, when you saw the presser, you're down there, you see what's going on. What's been the biggest eyebrow raising thing to you when you've seen all of this?
Well, I think, to be honest, the biggest eyebrow-raising thing to me was just the suspension in general. I think there was a lot of stuff coming out of that long 11-plus hour meeting yesterday that there was kind of a battle. There was rumors there was a battle between the president and the board. I find that hard to believe that it was just President Drake versus, the 20 board members or so going back and forth on whether it should be a suspension or not. There was rumors Urban didn't want to take the suspension. The whole press conference kind of felt to me like they had obviously probably heated discussions, and they had a united front. You can pick apart all of Urban's comments about the matter, but the surprising thing to me was that there was actually a suspension. I thought that this would have been, as we mentioned, one way or the other. I thought he would have been on the practice field today, but like you guys said, it's like a slap on the wrist. Like, hey, maybe he didn't do everything he was supposed to. He was supposed to report it to compliance. But then there's also the side of it as well that people are saying, well, there's no arrest, right? So if there's no arrest, what do you want the head coach to do? So that was the biggest shocker to me, was that there was actually a suspension.
Yeah, James Laurinaitis with us, two-time Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year at Ohio State, second-round pick of the Rams, 35th overall, had an outstanding career playing linebacker in the NFL. James, let me ask you this. If this was not Urban Meyer, let's say it was, any generic coach who's struggling to build a program, all this comes out, is he still coaching the team today?
Gosh, that's a good question. You would like to think that everyone's treated the same, but as you and I both know, that's not the case. In this game of football and being around it, nobody is treated the same, whether you're a head football coach and even assistants, as we see in this case. For some reason, Trey, and I can't figure out, my host of the show, Bo Bishop, and I have been trying to figure out, is why repeatedly, and if I had the opportunity to sit with Coach Meyer one-on-one in the room, I would ask him repeatedly, why did you keep giving Zach the benefit of the doubt? Right. Because for someone that is as smart as Urban Meyer and as talented of a football coach, someone who, he's a guy that knows what he's doing. He knows the pulse of college football almost better than anybody. You could argue him and Nick Saban. They know what they're doing. So why ruin or risk your legacy for a guy that repeatedly continued to let you down? I understand that he tried to say the whole thing about his mentor, Bruce. And look, I get it. I understand that that's a huge thing, and he had obviously a blind spot for him. But the repeated kind of giving him the benefit of the doubt. And look, this is a guy, let's not forget, he's had a zero tolerance policy with players when it comes to He kicked guys off the team for domestic violence stuff. He kicked Carlos Hyde off the team, and then after gathering more information, let him back on. He's been very, no tolerance with all of his players. So why, I guess, let the leash be, a little longer with this guy? I don't know the answer to that. And I think that's what a lot of people want to know.
James, and also the name Courtney Smith only came up at the end. And that was brought up by a reporter. She wasn't really mentioned at all in anything last night. And while there have been no charges filed against Zach Smith, we know the history of police showing up, and there are a lot of people. There are people that are on Zach Smith's side saying he hasn't been charged, he didn't do anything wrong, and a lot on Courtney Smith's side as well. The alleged person who was abused in all of this. What are your thoughts of the way Urban answered the question when asked about her, or just kind of Ohio State's and that report's general just disregard? Is that the right word, or just not acknowledging her at all in this?
I think personally they were just trying to look. I believe that, and I've tried to read up on why not. But there's some people saying legally that if they go out and say sorry to Courtney Smith, maybe they're admitting that they did something wrong or covered up something along the way, or they should have done more. And obviously you're going to have the group that says, hey, there's no arrest. So if there's no arrest, why would they be apologizing? Because if there's no arrest, there's no domestic violence. We don't know. These domestic violence cases are super just sensitive, tricky. And I want to say this. I believe that there is you need to have a sensitivity to Courtney. We have no idea what she went through as far as living with Zach Smith. We do know that it obviously was not a pleasant experience. You cannot imagine the amount of layers that she must have been going through with not only who her husband was, but children involved and the job security. There's a whole lot of things going on that we just don't know. Those are very personal and goodness. I've held the whole stance, guys, that I just wanted the truth to get out, and if there needed to be justice done for any of this because of the domestic violence, that needed to happen. But I also am leaning on the fact that I think this is what the board truly came down to. I don't think they thought that Urban Meyer intentionally went out of his way to cover up any domestic violence allegations. I believe that, listen, I'm a father of 2 daughters, so is Urban Meyer. He has 2 girls himself. I don't think that as a man he would go out of his way to cover up, no matter who he is and what his family relationship is with him, that he would go out of his way to do so. But we do need to be sensitive to Courtney Smith and all of this. It's obviously something that she's still going to have to deal with. And I mean, my goodness, but I think as the school not really mentioning it, I believe they did it more for legal purposes than anything else.
James Laurinaitis with us, 2-time Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year at Ohio State. You can hear James and Bishop and Laurinaitis weekdays from 9 to 12 right after we're done on 97.1 The Fan in Columbus. And James, it comes to another point here. Look, this all seems to be stemming from the fact that Urban Meyer, for lack of a better term, however we want to say it, lied, wasn't truthful, misremembered, falsely stated, all these euphemisms. If he had just said at Big Ten Media Day, yeah, I was aware of that, I tried to help him like I did at Florida, it didn't work out, and we finally decided that was enough, would we be here today?
You know what? I don't think we'd be here today. I think also what could have happened too is they could have suspended Zach Smith, and I think when you fire somebody, when you go to Big Ten Media Days, then you're going to say, hey, this is why. Give us the reason why, and there really wasn't that. If you suspend them and then end up firing, I think a suspension would have just let them be like, okay, we're obviously behind on this whole story. Let's catch up a little bit, and then we can fire them and just say, hey, look, we looked into it. The latest trespassing thing is really, I've warned them plenty of times. He could have came out and said, look, I had a blind eye to this guy because of our relationship with Earl. But all those things, and I think it wouldn't have been kind of this process that it's taken and what's unfolded, with this whole investigative team and everything. But I think there was a sense of just not being. It's surprising to think that he wasn't prepared, because this is one of the most prepared head coaches in all of college football. But I also do look. I've had plenty of interaction with Coach Meyer. He is one of the most focused people on winning football games. I mean, there's been times where I would have conversations with him, and he just doesn't remember, because if it's not helping him win a football game as far as a head football coach and what his motive is that day to get the team better, it goes in one ear out the other sometimes. But I don't believe that. I think that when he saw that, look, there was no arrest for this, I truly believe that he was saying what he thought was the truth when he was up there. I just don't think that it was handled necessarily in the best manner. But again, I don't think that it was a deliberate cover-up. But it's this whole report, still trying to read up on all of it. There's still some more questions that I think people are going to want to ask, and I don't think the 20 minutes of the press conference yesterday really put anything to rest, to be honest with you.
No, I don't think they did either. James, thanks for being with us this morning. You do a great job for us. Bishop Laurinaitis, weekdays from 9 to 12 on 97.1 The Fan. James, thanks for being with us.
Yep, anytime.
When it comes to hiring, you don't have time to waste. You need help getting to your short list of qualified candidates fast. That's why you need Indeed.com. Post a job in minutes, set up screener questions, then zero in on qualified candidates using an intuitive online dashboard. And when you need to hire fast, accelerate your results with sponsored jobs. New users can try for free at Indeed.com/podcast. That's Indeed.com/podcast. Terms, conditions, and quality standards apply.
Support for the Golic and Wingo Show podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Let's talk about buying homes for a minute. Because of rising interest rates, there's a lot of unpredictability when it comes to buying a home these days. It's causing a whole lot of anxiety with folks. Well, our friends at Quicken Loans are doing something about it. They're calling it the power buying process, and here's how it works. Quicken Loans will verify your income, assets, and credit in less than 24 hours to give you a verified approval. This gives you the strength of a cash buyer. Then, once you're verified, you qualify for their all-new exclusive Rate Shield approval. First, they lock your rate for up to 90 days while you shop. Now, here's the best part. If rates go up, your rate stays the same. But if rates go down, your rate also drops. You win either way. It's the kind of thinking you'd expect from America's largest mortgage lender. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/Golic. Rate Shield approval only valid on certain 30-year purchase transactions. Additional conditions or exclusions may apply. Based on Quicken Loans data in comparison to public data record. Equal housing lender. Licensed in all 50 states. NMLS ConsumerAccess.org number 3030.
Golic and Wingo, ESPN Radio, ESPN News, presented by Progressive Insurance. All phone guests join us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, and that is where we have our guy. Delighted to have him on the show, Stugotz, from the Dan Le Batard Show with Stugotz. Stu, how are we this morning? Stugotz, how are we this morning?
Good morning, fellas.
There we are.
How are you? What's going on?
You tell me. Obviously, there's a lot going on. We almost had an ace from Tiger there on the 11th hole. We were watching that. We'll get to Tiger and Phil and everything there in a minute. But Urban Meyer, 3-game suspension. Gene Smith, the athletic director at Ohio State, 3-game suspension. Your thoughts are what?
Guys, it's an absolute joke. First off, you have this group that did this investigation. They took their time doing it, their sweet time doing it, and I'm fine with that. You want them to take their time to try to get this right. But I know just slightly less than I knew before they started their investigation, and that's confusing. And I heard you guys talking about Urban on the way in a little bit. And listen, some of this is on us. I got to be honest with you. Urban did a terrible job. Urban should have been fired. Obviously not. Got a 3-game suspension. I understand Buckeye fans who just want to win, and that's all they care about. I kind of get it from their standpoint. In this particular case, here we have one of the game's greatest coaches who had this fall in his lap, and what he did with it was the bare minimum. And I'm sorry, guys, I'd like to see a coach do a little bit more than just the bare minimum, than call it up to his superior and say, hey, you handle this. And the real problem, and again, some of this is on the media, guys, is, 3 months from now, Ohio State's going to go play Michigan, and we're going to forget about everything that happened with Urban Meyer. And there are going to be a bunch of, puff pieces headed into that game about what a great coach, about what a great man Urban Meyer is. And I would just beg everyone to go back. You want to know what Urban Meyer is? Jeremy Fowler wrote a great piece years ago. I've talked about it before, about Urban's time at the University of Florida and how Urban Meyer, sold his soul to create a national champion at the University of Florida. And he had this halo over the program at Tim Tebow to distract you from what was really going on at Florida, which was 30-some-odd arrests.
Yeah, 31.
While Urban Meyer was the head 31 arrests, while Urban Meyer was the head coach at the University of Florida. I'm telling you guys, some of this is on us because we build these coaches up to such a ridiculous place. We shouldn't. And I maintain that the coaches all get together once a year, led by Rick Pitino. They have a party, and they talk about how they, pull one over on the public here because they're making so much money. For what? For what? They're getting paid so much money because they're coaching kids who are doing all the work. Those kids aren't getting any of the money. And then Urban Meyer gets off. And why shouldn't Urban Meyer feel like he did nothing wrong? We've told Urban Meyer his entire life he's done nothing wrong. So, of course, he's going to feel like that.
So the statement by the board here on why he was suspended, he talked about Gene Smith and Urban Meyer. They failed to take sufficient management action relating to Zach Smith's misconduct and retained an assistant coach who is not performing as an appropriate role model for OSU student-athletes. Permitting such misconduct to continue is not consistent with the values of the university, and it goes into the suspension. So you said he should be fired. I guess I would ask this, Stugotz. As we found out in the report, and so he was suspended over how that process went. And in the report it reads, the Title IX coordinator was the first one who found out from the police about this. That person told Gene Smith. Gene Smith then told Urban Meyer. So Urban Meyer never had to take it upstairs because upstairs told him. They immediately pulled Zach Smith into the office, And Urban Meyer said, if I found out you hit her, you're fired. Gene Smith said, if charges are filed against you, you're fired, of which charges weren't filed against him. So I'm just sticking with this because you just said he should be fired. What should he be fired for?
Jim Tressel got fired for a lot less, did he not, Mike?
All right, but what I'm asking you, what should he be fired? Give me, what is your reason when you say Urban Meyer should be fired? I think it should be fair to say, why should he be fired?
Mike, it is my feeling that because that Urban Meyer has been very – now, this is my feeling, okay,
right,
and I
sure.
find it impossible not to believe this, okay? Mm-hmm. But it is my feeling that Urban Meyer has been very close to Zach Smith and this entire family in this situation for a very long time, okay? And, he had Coach Bruce come down in 2009 to the University of Florida. That's Zach Smith's grandson, and that, Bruce got Urban a job, helped Urban get into coaching. He cared enough about it in 2009 that you have to think that Urban has cared all the way through and kept a watchful eye, both he and his wife, on this entire situation. And what they do with it, they did nothing. They accused the media of making up stories. They didn't do enough with it, Mike. And all I'm saying is I want the head coaches here, if I'm going to entrust if I'm going to entrust this guy to watch over my kid for 4 years, I want the coach to do more than just kind of keep a watchful eye and just do the bare minimum. And in this case, as you just pointed out, he didn't even do that. Maybe he wasn't given the opportunity to do that. But this is also a guy who's a couple of weeks removed from saying, hey, talking about the NCAA basketball coaches, if you lie, you're gone. At the very least, here we know Urban lied, right, about something. Mike, you should be fine. I want Mike more so to set an example to the other coaches. Hey, we're not going to stand for this anymore. It's just not going to happen anymore. And so I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed with Urban Meyer.
Listen, while there are definitely inconsistencies, and I think he lied about some things about knowing about the text from his wife, and she said she didn't share them with him. The board didn't even believe that. I guess I'm really, because there's a couple of optics here of how the presser went and then what he was actually suspended for. And I guess I just don't see it the way you see it, Stu, from that situation of the way he found out and what he said. You say he should be held accountable to do more. What more in that situation should he have done? I mean, everybody.
Mike, but you're thinking when they called him into the office, Urban Meyer knew since 2009 that there were problems with this particular family. He's that close to Zach Smith. You're thinking when Urban got called to the office, that's the first thing he's hearing about Zach Smith and what's going on?
No, we're not saying that.
No, we're not saying that.
I don't think he's saying that.
No, but I'm still trying to get from you what
Mike,
more did you want?
Why does it have to be, Mike, why does it have to be, hey, if you hit her, you're fired? How about since 2009, you've been a really bad dude, you're fired? Why do you have to keep him on the staff?
No, that's a fair point. That's a fair point, Stugotz. That's a fair point.
That's a fair point. My point is, if the board wanted to say that, that's fine. My point is, the board is saying they suspended him. I'm trying to be very specific here. They suspended him.
Mike, I understand that. The board also has 3 Ohio State trustees on it. This whole thing is an absolute mess. You want to have a real board make a decision, make it a completely independent board that has no stakes in the game. I mean, you got 3 Ohio State trustees on that board. I don't trust that board at all, do you?
No, I think that's a fair point. If it's a full independent investigation, it should be completely independent. But to Stugotz's point, Gene Smith says he didn't know the athletic director about 09 until last month, and because that would have been something that he might not have known, right? Because he wasn't there in Florida when Urban and Zach were together there in Florida.
Yeah, and Mike, just going back to this discussion, and listen, we don't argue that much, but listen, you have a chance here with a high-profile coach. After Nick Saban, it's Urban Meyer. If you're this committee, if you're the NCAA, to set an example and say, hey, we're not going to accept this anymore. This is ridiculous. If you know about something, report it. It shouldn't have to be, Mike, it really shouldn't have to be, hey, it lands in my office. And how about Urban Meyer just be an adult, be proactive, know what's going on inside of that household, be everything that Urban Meyer has sold us on Urban Meyer being. Be proactive, go take care of the situation, get Zach Smith some help, get her away from Zach Smith, take care of the situation like a normal adult would. He did it. And Urban goes up there last night in that press conference, and that's like he did nothing wrong. Why should he feel like he did something wrong? Because we're sitting here, a bunch of us saying, hey, you know what, Urban shouldn't be fired today. No, you know what, you had a chance to set an example with the highest profile coach of the game. And they didn't do it. And why? Because 3 Ohio State trustees were making the decision. It's a complete mess. It's a complete joke. All of it, Mike.
I think the fairest point there, Stugotz, you're right. If they wanted a fully independent investigation, which I think is what's happening at Maryland, right? Make it a fully independent investigation.
They didn't.
Because Mike, what they're telling you a 90% winning percentage and a national championship or two.
Clock integrity. Clock integrity. We got to run. I love you, Stu. Clock integrity.
See you, man.
You're the best. Never change.
I just disagree. And then blaming the media. You know what? Urban Meyer's responsible for himself.
At the end of the day, if he had been forthright, a Big Ten Media Day, we're not here today.
I just saved hundreds of dollars by switching to Geico. I'm as happy as a clam.
Disclaimer. Geico cannot guarantee you will be, quote, as happy as a clam, unquote. The Geico legal team cannot accurately verify clams even experience the complex human emotional state known as happiness. As an invertebrate mollusk living half submerged on the ocean floor with no arms, legs, or wireless access, what's there to be happy about? A clam's all like, oh, I'm so happy I didn't get turned into New England clam chowder today. Pronounced regionally as chowder. Chowder. Oh, that's so fun to say. What were we talking about again?
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
Time for a little love it or shove it. You ready? Everything has nuance. Nothing happens in black and white. See, Bubba's going to hate me again, but I think there's nuance here. You guys have to embrace the nuance in life. Oh, wait, hold on. There's 2 questions there. Life is not black and white. It's mostly gray.
Just answer the question.
No, well, which one do you want me to answer? No, you're loving that. You're loving the statement.
You love it or shove it. It's a statement, and then you love it or shove it. This is the first time playing.
No, it's not, and it should probably be the last time playing. All right.
SportsCenter is brought to you by DraftKings. DraftKings hosting fantasy football contest for week one with $2 million up for grabs. Get the app or go to DraftKings.com now. Use the code Golic to play free with your first deposit. Minimum $5. Deposit is required. Eligibility restrictions do apply. Check out DraftKings.com for details.
Love it or shove it time. Brought to you by Granger. You want to read it, Bubba?
Let's do it. Ohio State.
No. What? Love it or shove it is brought to you by you.
The end.
Okay. I was going to let you a little more Granger love, but you didn't want to do it.
What are you doing?
Just waiting for you to say
We had such a good one last week. You understood the game.
He did better in the game, didn't he?
Go.
What are you
Speak
doing?
words.
Ohio State should have either fired Urban Meyer or not suspended him at all. Love it or shove it.
Came into the morning after the presser last night thinking that, and then in reading this 23-page report. Now,
I encourage everybody to read the report. It's on
it
ESPN.com.
Is incredible. The reason they gave for the suspension was for him and Gene Smith was the fact that their procedures with the information, which I don't know how much you can put on Urban for that specific thing. Now, if you want to go through this report and look at some of the inaccuracies and in my opinion, the flat out lies that they call false statements that are lies, then I could say, okay, you know what? There is some gray area on being more worried about scrubbing his emails from a year to, I believe, lying about knowing about the text from his wife. So I think I could see a 3-game suspension. So I think I'll shove this.
I'm going to shove it because I'm more confused after reading the report than I was before it. And it seems to me like the report itself contradicts itself 400 or 500 times. I'm in no way saying that Urban Meyer is not without fault here. I want to be clear about that. But reading this report, they seem to be talking themselves in circles.
Boy, they really
I have no
do.
idea what's going on, so I'm going to shove it.
The Match is the golf event on the 2018 calendar that you're most looking forward to. Love it or shove it.
To me, it would be the Ryder Cup, without question. You got the FedEx playoffs going on right now. You have certainly the match between Tiger and Phil on Thanksgiving, but for me, it's a Ryder Cup at the end of September in France. I'd love that.
Look, I am all in for the Tiger-Phil match. I'm going to buy it on pay-per-view. I can't wait. It's going to be awesome. Nothing to me tops the Ryder Cup. It is the greatest sporting event I like to watch every 2 years, so I have to shove that.
The Vikings won the NFL offseason. Love it or shove it.
They added Kirk Cousins, Sheldon Richardson. They just added safety George Iloka. They extended Danielle Hunter, Eric Kendricks, and Stephon Diggs. And they
Dalvin Cook back. They did lose some players
did they get
in
Michael
last
Gallup?
preseason game. Well, see, there you go.
So no.
As far as winning the offseason, which of course means nothing, I think I'll love it. I think they had a great offseason. I would agree with that for a meaningless win.
Yeah, because you know who won many off seasons in the 2000s? Washington.
Yeah.
They didn't win games in the playoffs. But I think I'll love it. I'll love the fact that they believe they've done everything they need to get to a Super Bowl. The Rams are close with Brandon Cooks and Ndamukong Suh, but they still don't have Aaron Donald signed, so that's a big red flag for me at this point. So I'm going to love it with the Vikings.
The Jets and Ravens will both keep 3 quarterbacks on their 53-man roster. Love it or shove it.
Wow. Man, there's part of me that almost looks like you start Teddy Bridgewater playing well enough to be the starter, but we know what's going on there. I'm going to say that they will in one place. I think
so. You got to shove it that it was only one place.
I'm going to shove it because I think it just won in one place, and I think it could be Baltimore because I don't think they're going to think Lamar Jackson is ready to be the backup there.
I'm with you there. I think we said earlier. I'm going to shove it as well because I think it's going to be a split. I think that we all thought. When the preseason began, that Robert Griffin III was auditioning for another team, and I think the audition for Lamar Jackson has gone so poorly that I think that they're going to keep three there. I think Teddy Bridgewater is eventually going to get traded.
I think so as well.
Darnold and Josh.
I think they're going to see the value of that go up, and teams want to jump on it, and he'll get traded and have a chance to do something somewhere.
Yeah, great. Love It or Shove It is brought to you by Grainger, the products and services you need when you need them. Grainger's got your back to help keep your facility running. Grainger, for ones to get it done. Like me. Coming up, our newest teammate is going to salsa his way in here, and I'm told that he already has some strong opinions. Go Cowboys.
Are you hiring? With Indeed, you can post a job in minutes, set up screener questions, then zero in on your short list of qualified candidates using an online dashboard. Get started today at Indeed.com/podcast. That's Indeed.com/podcast.
That's better than looking at Victor Cruz across from us in the studio, resplendent in his suit as he joins us as our new NFL analyst. Welcome to the team, my man.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. You guys are pumped up this morning. I love it.
You are
been here for a few hours.
You are certainly going to see when you come on this show that you could definitely dress down, though.
Okay.
Yeah.
You look really nice, and you're really showing us
I just tried to outdo you guys.
Oh, you did it.
Let me put it this way.
That's my goal.
That was easy. That was easy.
Talking about a layup.
So we are delighted Victor Cruz is going to be with us all season long here, and he's joining us in studio, giving us the Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless, best phones, best networks, no contracts. And we'll do a deep dive into the NFL with Victor, including a crazy take from him.
Oh, boy.
About his old team. We'll get to that as we get through what's trending, and what's trending is we're all confused. Ohio State head coach Urban Meyer and the athletic director Gene Smith suspended for the first 3 games of the football season without pay after the sort of independent committee released that 23-page document, which, Mike, I think had more questions than answers in it.
It really did. I mean, if you go by what the statement was from the committee about why Gene Smith and Urban Meyer were suspended, it was about the procedures after learning of the potential charges against Zach Smith, of which no charges were eventually filed. You wonder, okay, where is the suspension here, especially for Urban, the way he found out, which we'll get into more. But you read through this 23-page report, and there are parts where the board, who did the investigation, the people who did the investigation, don't even believe Urban Meyer and some of the things that he had said. So it gets very, very murky, no doubt about it.
It's crazy. And I think that Urban Meyer felt very strongly yesterday that he was going to be back on the practice field.
I think so as well. The way there's two things to look at. The presser from the optics standpoint, of which Urban Meyer feels he did nothing wrong and should not have been suspended. And from reports we're getting, this thing lasted 10, 11 hours. He was fighting that suspension, didn't think it should have happened, eventually gave into that. But you could kind of tell by his mannerisms, begrudgingly, the way he went about that. Didn't come off all that well. To me, they didn't all come off as one solid unit there. But bottom line is he's out 3 games. He'll be back, and they'll more than likely be 3-0 by the time he gets back.
Yeah.
He can join the team September 2nd.
Yes.
Just can't coach him on game days anymore. He can't be around them until September 2nd, so that misses the first game against Oregon State, but then he can be back around the team.
So essentially he'll be coaching the last 2 games, just not doing it from the sidelines, right?
Exactly.
That's sort of where we are here.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's continue what's trending, and let's talk about what's going on in golf right now.
Oh, he looked good.
Yeah, I got a Tiger folder, okay?
El Tigre.
Tiger Woods, yo. Tiger Woods teeing off in his first FedEx Cup event since 2013, or FedEx race for the FedEx standings at the Northern Trust. It'll all come out eventually.
Yeah.
He is level par through his first 4 holes. He missed a birdie putt on a par 3 of about 11 feet, but has found the fairway on the par.
Laid up on the
13th.
second shot of that one.
Yep. Must be very long.
We'll see where that goes. Victor, what I want to ask you, so we have set up the one-on-one with Tiger Woods and Phil Mickelson the Friday, day after Thanksgiving, for $9 million, one-on-one. If we were to do a football pay-per-view right now of wide receiver, best wide receiver you think against best DB you think in, say, 20 one-on-one matchups in a pay-per-view, who would they be?
I think it's happening week 1. I feel like Odell Beckham Jr. against Jalen Ramsey is definitely pay-per-view TV and something that people are going to be lining up to watch. Because, I mean, just from the comments alone from Jalen and the competitive nature of Odell Beckham Jr., it's going to be a fun game to watch, and I sure as heck would pay for it.
Boy, that would be something. Those guys mic'd up as well.
Oh, man.
The talkers that they are.
That's
a good one. That's a good poll right there.
By the way, you can see Tiger in action on the first round of the Northern Trust on ESPN Plus.
There you go.
I love that Phil Mickelson said this is going to be the easiest 10 million I ever won. Jokingly, of course.
But what we loved about it is that like the golfiest thing to say. Like all my other 9 millions were difficult, but this 9 million, my 47th 9 million,
seriously,
that's going to be easy.
Shouldn't it be $4.5 million each of their own money?
I think they should split. Yeah, absolutely.
Can you imagine a pile
Put their
of
own money up.
9 million cash
on the 18th green,
on the green, just like
on the 18th green,
like they do with the poker championships, and they throw all
Put it
on the table.
Exactly.
Put it all on the table.
That'd be awesome.
That would be good, and it's so good it's not going to happen. No. Baseball now. The Cubs snapped their 3-game losing streak with an 8-2 win over the Tigers. Newly acquired second baseman Daniel Murphy, 2 for 5 with an RBI from the leadoff spot. And rookie third baseman David Bodie, who hit one of those 3 home runs for Chicago. Just really happy, Mike, to have Murphy on board.
And I enjoyed this. Now, Murphy comes over and 2 for 5, as you mentioned, from the leadoff spot. You know, doesn't really miss a beat. He's been played 28 games before the All-Star break, 28 games after. He's hitting 340 in those post All-Star game, 28 games. So he's hot right now, playing well. But the rookie and David Bodie, Victor, I really liked this, how he talked about, I started talking to him in the 9th inning. I'm just scratching the surface on his approach to hitting, and I'm so excited he's with us and can learn. When you were a rookie, or is that missing now, rookies kind of leaning on veterans in the NFL to learn? I know that's something I did, as my dad said, keep your mouth shut and your eyes and ears open and learn. Mm-hmm. Is that translating now? Do you think it still happens?
Yeah, absolutely. I did it coming up and just learning the ropes, asking Justin Tuck questions and Osi Umenyiora about the lay of the land, how things work at the Giants at that specific time. And then I did it for guys, obviously Sterling Shepard and Odell Beckham early in his career. I think it's something that definitely happens as the veterans, and the veterans want that. They want younger guys to kind of come up to them, ask questions, and lead them in the right direction, because in turn, that's going to help the entire NFL be better. And that's going to help the culture of the NFL be better when you have these upstanding guys in the league, these veterans kind of teaching these young guys the way it goes.
And that's why he's hired, by the way. You said that answer right there. As we said, we're glad to have our new NFL analyst, Victor Cruz, with us in studio for this NFL Training Camp Report, brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Protecting your small business, it's a big deal. Cover what you've worked so hard for. Visit ProgressiveCommercial.com. Okay, as he came in here, we talked about some of the things that we expect to hear from Victor all season long. Let's just say he has already come out of the gate firing. This was Victor Cruz earlier talking about what his expectations are for the New York Football Giants in 2018.
I'm going to go on the record and say they're going to win 10 games this year.
Okay.
And they're going to be a playoff team. Will they be a Super Bowl contending playoff team? We'll have to see how the kind of, how the season unfolds and how they kind of, what their character of that team kind of becomes as the year progresses. But I think they're a playoff caliber team, at least right now on paper. They still got to go out there and play those games. But I think they win 10 games and have a good year.
First of all, let me just say I'm about to sneeze. Homer! I'm sorry. Homer! Sorry.
Wow.
Sorry.
Coming.
Come on. All right.
I earned that one.
No, tell me, why do you think they're going to be a 10-win team?
Well, I just think, first of all, the universe always comes back around for the New York Giants. At some point in time.
That is a fair assessment.
It always comes back around. And I truly believe that the addition of Saquon Barkley to take pressure off of Eli Manning, to make the play action pass even more formidable with the weapons that they have at tight end and at the receiver positions. I just think they're prime, and as well as that defense, which obviously they didn't do so well last year, but I think they have some cornerstones in Jack Rabbit, Janoris, and Eli Apple at corner. And obviously the front 7 and the front 4 specifically with Snacks Harrison and Olivier Vernon, all those guys getting to the quarterback. I think the combination of those two things are make the Giants prime for a great year. And I think they're a playoff team.
7-game swing it would be, being 30-13 last year, saying 10-6. Do you have them winning the division, or maybe a wild card?
I do. I did pick them for winning the division. I think it's going to be close. Obviously, the NFC East, particularly, is always kind of a tight race right at the top, right at the end of the season. But I do have them winning the division.
Do you think there's you mentioned Saquon and the running game for play action, which is great. Mm-hmm. If the running game works, and it's not just the running back, that O-line has been a mess. Nate Solder, though, comes to the left side. They draft Will Hernandez. He's a left guard. Do you think they've done enough with that offensive line.
I think they have. I think Nate Solder provides a big staple for them, a kind of a cornerstone guy that you know what he's bringing to the table. He's going to be consistent, and that's what you need at the offensive line positions for a guy like Eli Manning, who's not going to create longer plays after the snap and things like that, and create more plays with his legs. He has to be in the pocket, standing upright with a clean jersey for most of the game, and be able to make those reads, because we know he's a shoulders up kind of quarterback. He's a cerebral kind of quarterback and needs to pick apart defenses. And I think the offensive line can provide that for him this year.
Victor Cruz, our new NFL analyst, back with us. And by the way, just kidding, it's your homer thing. It's a decent opinion. You will never see, but I will ask you this. If you think they're winning the division, I know a team that's waving their hand over here and saying, yo, we won the Super Bowl, Philadelphia. What about them?
Well, I feel like they're battling some early injuries to some starters, obviously. They
lost their quarterback and their left tackle last year. They still won the Super Bowl.
Very true, and they came back with Nick Foles. But this year's a little different. Obviously, you're going over that hangover Super Bowl thing is real.
You have been through it.
Obviously, yeah. I went through it. And we had some younger guys on our team with the Giants. Then it's harder to pull those guys back in. Super Bowl's over, guys. Let's play football again. Let's focus on this year. And I think they're going to have that same kind of battle with their team this year, but I think they'll be good.
How difficult for the players, especially the defensive side of the ball, with the helmet rule that's going on, is it? Because we talk about, you've been obviously between you and I in training camps a lot more recent than I have, too. So you sit there and talk about a helmet rule now for everybody. But let's be honest, in practice, there's not a lot of hitting that goes on to really say, okay, they're going to call this, but you don't really practice it.
Yeah, it's tough, and I know there's videos that the NFL is trying to show to teach them and teach them exactly what the rule is, but it's hard, man. Football is such an instinctual game, such a reactive game. It's hard to run full speed at a guy like a Saquon Barkley and say, okay, let me pace myself and kind of hit him and keep my face out of the way and my shoulder. By the time you do all that thinking, he's already run you over and running by you. So that's going to be tough to deal with this helmet rule situation. And then another thing is, how are you going to call it? Are you going to be looser on the call? How are the refs going to see this happening in full speed, and how are they going to call this play?
Yeah, listen, it's going to be very, very difficult. We had Mike Pereira on from Fox, who basically said, yeah, he thinks they're going to change it differently. And we've seen through this a couple of times. I think there was a couple of years ago, there was a heightened instinct on pass interference, and it was flagged all the time, right, in the preseason. And I think you were playing then, and it didn't seem like it was as much of a call in the regular season that year, right?
Yep. They made you can see it called heavily throughout the preseason, and then, every team has their meetings with refs and stuff during training camp, and they ask them questions. And we kind of got to the bottom of it. Obviously, the receiver room is a lot more combative with the refs, if you will. But we understand that it was a pass interference call. How are you going to call it? Teach us how you're going to call it, so we know how to basically use it to our advantage as a receiver. Do we stop and slow up for the ball, have them hit us, or do we keep going? What is contact? What do you consider contact that is pass interference? So it's just a matter of how you're going to call it initially, and then how you're going to call it throughout the regular season.
Our newest ESPN NFL analyst, Victor Cruz, joining us in studio here, Golic and Wingo. We asked this really a hypothetical, but this is what happens, when you had the chance to pick somebody you didn't and went a different direction. If Sam Darnold goes on to have a great career and Saquon Barkley goes on to have a great career, would it have been a mistake by the Giants not to take Sam Darnold?
You got to ask me that question 5 years from now.
I know. That's the beauty of right now. We get to ask it now.
Exactly. I'm not sure. I think a little bit, obviously, in looking forward in hindsight, you'd be like, wow, I wish the Giants would have got Sam Darnold. But if Saquon Barkley turns out to be everything that we say he is or everything that we think he is, I think they'll be just fine. I think, obviously, Eli's got some years left. We'll see how many years exactly he has left. And I think that the Giants understand that, and they made a decision. And I think they sticking by their decision. And I think Saquon's one of those lifer guys.
Did you think they were going to take Saquon or take a quarterback? What did you think they were going to do?
I thought they had faith in Eli, and they wanted to give him another shot and give him his just due as, the Eli Manning that he is. And I think I wanted Saquon. I think the Giants have been missing kind of that cornerstone running back for a long time now, and it was time we got back to that.
All right, Victor, drop the we.
We dropped the we.
Yeah, there you go.
That was
Victor, the we
too.
now refers to ESPN, just so you're aware. Our newest NFL analyst, Victor Cruz, with us. Okay, invoking the royal we, again, what can you tell us about maybe any negotiations with Odell Beckham Jr.? Is this thing going to get done?
I hope it's going to get done, and for the Giants' sake, for the fans, I know they want to get it done, and for Odell, I think Odell's put in the work to be the highest paid receiver in the NFL, and I think the Giants are trying to make him that, and hopefully it happens before week 1 because I don't think Odell should risk an injury and lace him up and go out there without a contract being done.
Take everybody on the field where 99.9% of the people can't go. We know Odell Beckham will talk out on the field, and we know Jalen Ramsey will talk out on the field from, as you said, the week 1 matchup. How is it out there? Were you a smack talker? What was it like when guys were smack talking to you? What did you see? Tell us about those confrontations.
Those times were fun, man. Obviously, guys, I remember some battles with Ike Taylor and things like that, which the best part about it is we talked a bunch of smack throughout the game, mostly imposed on me. I wasn't necessarily a smack talker, but if someone started jawing at me, I'm jawing back.
You're going to fire back.
100%. It's just the way that I was raised, I guess. But the best part about the trash talk and going back and forth and going at it and scoring touchdowns and making big plays and showing out for your team is that after the game, it was all respect. Ike came up to me after the game. We shook hands. I mean, you're a hell of a player. And I said the same about him, and we still have that mutual respect to this day. And I think that's what you're going to see with Odell and Jalen Ramsey, although there's talk and obviously they respect each other's games. But when you line up in between those lines and those hashes, it's time to go and it's time to play. And I think you'll see a lot of jawing, a lot of back and forth, nothing that'll interrupt the game or slow the game down or anything like that. But I think it's going to be a fun game to watch.
You got to stop it. Unlike Odell and what was it, Josh Norman, where you're getting flags and now you're costing your team. And exactly. I was always bummed about. I was never a good smack talker. I mean, I wasn't a good enough player to be a smack talker. Yeah. But my brother Greg would always try and give me good lines. Hey, when you get in the game and somebody say this, mine was 2 words and it ended in
little
you.
Personal tidbits about
the other guys. I had nothing. They would say something to me, I'd go, blank you. And that would be it. You're the go back to the huddle. That would be it. That's all they would do.
John Randall is what you're
John Randall was phenomenal with what he would do. It's great,
best
I've always said, you agree or disagree, the further away from the ball, the better the smack talk was.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
100%.
That's true. It is very
100%.
true.
Listen, you don't want to start a fire that somebody else has to put out.
Right? That's exactly right. Plus, linemen were too busy trying to suck in oxygen.
Exactly. Just get me ready for the next play.
Exactly.
All right, let me ask you this then. As we're here with Victor Cruz, our newest NFL analyst. We talked a little bit about Sam Darnold and the situation there and whether it'll ever be justified if he turns out to be great, the pick of Saquon Barkley. Of all these quarterbacks, these rookies, which one impressed you the most so far?
I like Sam Darnold. I think he has all the ability and all the tools, everything we've watched, whether it's the arm strength, whether it's extending a play a little bit and throwing on the run. I think he's got the tools to be an above average, almost a great quarterback in this league. Obviously, time will tell, but I think he has the tools and the assets. Now it's just about surrounding him with the type of players that can continue to elevate his game year in and year out.
In all of our prognostications that we all do and that now you are part of doing, and so you did that with the Giants and say that, and you'll do that for divisions. The one thing that's been the common throughout the last decade or so has been New England's going to be right there toward the end of the season.
Exactly.
Do you feel all the talk that went on in the offseason, the Alex Guerrero, the TB12, and it seemed like the butting heads that was going on there, do you think that will have any effect on this team this year?
I don't think so, man. I think they've just been through so much. Every year they kind of have these storylines in the offseason, sometimes during the season, and you think, man, how are they going to come back from this one? How are they going to, wipe themselves clean of this mess? And then they just win a Super Bowl that year or play in the Super Bowl that year. And you're just like, well, they're over it. We don't know how they do it, but year in and year out, even now they just cut Kenny Britt. They just cut another receiver. They have injuries at receiver. Like, how are you going to pull this off?
Right.
And then somehow they'll be 5-4-0 in the first month of the season or something.
So true.
That.
Well, that's amazing.
I'm glad you brought that up because I wanted to ask you this as a receiver who knows what it takes to work with quarterbacks, get in that relationship, have that chemistry. As you said, they've just released Kenny Britt. It seems like the one thing that's been amazing to me about New England's success is that Tom Brady has been the constant, but it has been a relentless parade of different receivers with which he has had all kind of success. How hard is that to do?
It's extremely difficult. I mean, just to have a rapport with your receivers and a right rapport, make sure they're at the right place at the right time. That takes time. That takes time building that with those receivers. And for them to just plug and play every year and just mix guys in and just, have those different faces be receivers for their team and still be successful it's actually mind-blowing to me because you need those times to build that chemistry, and they don't always have that, but they figure it out throughout the week.
Yeah, that's the thing that when they released Kenny Britt, I'm like, my God, the number of receivers.
It's amazing.
And then Jordan Matthews, too.
Yeah, Jordan
and they pull it off.
It's crazy.
It is incredible.
I tell you, Braxton Berrios, watch out.
Oh,
Yeah.
without a doubt.
Watch
right
out
in
for
the
this
slot
kid.
there. Holy
Perfect.
smokes.
Victor Cruz, Pro Bowl wide receiver. Welcome to the team, my man.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for having me.
Look forward to
I'll
having
be
you
sure to
all
dress
season.
down.
Please.
Flip-flops, whatever you need.
Not putting the camera on.
Yeah, just T-shirt, whatever. It's all good.
When it comes to hiring, you don't have time to waste. You need help getting to your short list of qualified candidates fast. That's why you need Indeed.com. Post a job in minutes, set up screener questions, then zero in on qualified candidates using an intuitive online dashboard. And when you need to hire fast, accelerate your results with sponsored jobs. New users can try for free at Indeed.com/podcast. That's Indeed.com/podcast. Terms, conditions, and quality standards apply.
Support for the Golic and Wingo Show podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Let's talk about buying homes for a minute. Because of rising interest rates, there's a lot of unpredictability when it comes to buying a home these days. It's causing a whole lot of anxiety with folks. Well, our friends at Quicken Loans are doing something about it. They're calling it the power buying process, and here's how it works. Quicken Loans will verify your income, assets, and credit in less than 24 hours to give you a verified approval. This gives you the strength of a cash buyer. Then once you're verified, you qualify for their all-new exclusive Rate Shield approval. First, they lock your rate for up to 90 days while you shop. Now here's the best part. If rates go up, your rate stays the same. But if rates go down, your rate also drops. You win either way. It's the kind of thinking you'd expect from America's largest mortgage lender. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/Golic. Rate Shield approval only valid on certain 30-year purchase transactions. Additional conditions or exclusions may apply. Based on Quicken Loans data in comparison to public data record. Equal housing lender. Licensed in all 50 states. NMLSconsumeraccess.org number 3030.
All right, Golic and Wingo with you here on ESPN Radio and ESPN News. We are presented by Progressive Insurance. All phone guests join us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Mike, obviously what happened at Ohio State last night has been dominating the discussion today. And, you know, this report, this 23-page report that the semi-independent committee went through and detailed in that executive session yesterday, that wasn't released until after the press conference.
Right.
And you're still doing this deep dive and figuring out. And, you know, we're trying to figure out what he was really suspended for and how this all went down. And there's just one part here that I think maybe sums it up. Because remember, he denied a Big Ten Media Day knowing about the 2015 allegations, which obviously he was well aware of.
Right.
And then it says here, and part of that report, after consulting with Zach Smith, the wide receiver coach who was fired about the allegations in the 2015 event, who denied the allegations, Gene Smith, the athletic director, and Urban Meyer decided to keep track of the police investigation, but did not inform the athletic department's compliance office, which could have determined if an internal review was warranted. So to me, if we're looking for what really might have been the reason for all this, that right there, I think, sums it up.
Yeah, I think it does. Again,
let's keep track of it, but let's not talk about it to the compliance officer.
Again,
I think that's
the order of who found out first, from the Title IX coordinator to Gene Smith, then to Urban Meyer, and I do think some of the inconsistencies in this report were flat out the people doing the investigating just don't believe Urban Meyer in some of these instances that we'll get into.
Exactly, and again, if they'd just been honest about the Big Ten Media Day, we might be have a completely different discussion here. But again, if you go back and read the whole thing, and it's a lot to read through, that they both, Gene Smith and Meyer, decided to keep track of the investigation, but did not inform the compliance office. That's when you say, you can't do it that way. You simply can't. All right, Golic and Wingo, presented by Progressive Insurance, with insurance for cars, home, boat, motorcycles, RVs, and commercial vehicles at 1-800-PROGRESSIVE and Progressive.com. Well, the Bears are hoping to be very progressive with their offense this year. They went out and got a bunch of weapons for their second-year quarterback, Mitchell Trubisky. They had Trey Burton come over from the Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles.
Yes.
And they also got what they believe to be a big upgrade at wide receiver. That was Allen Robinson. And we're delighted to be joined now on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line by new Bears wide receiver Allen Robinson. Allen, thanks for being here. First and foremost, how are you on the recovery from the ACL from a year ago? Where are we?
I'm doing really well. I've been full go since camp started, so that's about a month and some change now. So, for me, just getting back into everything. So, everything's been great, though.
In talking about that, because we've talked a lot about, injuries and coming back from yours was early in the season, so it's had time to be ready for the start of this season. But to get people to know a little bit more of the rehab, when you're physically ready to go, talk about the mental side of it, of just having the mental awareness to say, okay, I can now try and cut or do something full speed on something that was damaged.
Yeah, I think it's a big part of it. It's something that you got to trust, something that you have to develop trust, throughout the process of coming back, but that's definitely a big part of it. As a high performance athlete, it's not something that you're going to be able to make cuts, at the drop of a dime.
Allen Robinson with us, new Bears wide receiver. So you had to deal with the rehab, and we have two quarterbacks, Carson Wentz and Deshaun Watson, that are trying to come back from torn ACLs as well. Can you just take people in through what the rehab is like? I mean, because it's a slog, man. I can tell people just the things that you had to do to make sure you get right and get back and ready.
It's a lot of stuff. When you first start off and get off of the crutches, you just have a very weak limb, So you're doing a lot of different kind of strengthening exercises each and every day. It's not something that you can really take too many days of. It's a lot of strengthening work. It's a lot of balance work. It's a lot of getting the strength back in the ankles and hips and quads. So it's a lot.
Talking to Allen Robinson, Bears wide receiver on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Now you're in Chicago, the offense of Matt Nagy's offense, new head coach there. Tell us a little bit about this offense and how it can play into the strengths of your game.
It's a very unique offense. I think for me, that's something that I've learned since day one. But at the same time, it's a lot of different opportunities, a lot of different kind of opportunities. Down the field, intermediate, short, catch and run. They have a lot of different options in this offense, and you're able to move around, and there's a lot of versatility. Like I said before, for any skill position, it's definitely an awesome place to be.
Allen Robinson with us, Bears wide receiver. Allen, talk a little bit about Mitchell Trubisky. There's all the talk about the four quarterbacks taken in the first round of this year's draft, but Mitchell was the first guy taken in last year's draft. What have you seen about his game that you like?
He can make every throw on the field. I think that's the most important thing. He can make every throw on the field. Has great command of the offense. I think for a second-year guy, that's something that stuck out to me right away. He's a guy who wants to be great. Who wants to get better each and every day. And that. It's not a day where he comes in and is not the leader for this offense.
So you have now preseason game number 3, as everybody says, the dress rehearsal Saturday. Kansas City coming to Chicago. So. What is in your mind that now, being a veteran, the object of these preseason games, especially when you're going to play a little more than normal on Saturday?
I think for me, it's pretty specific on just getting back in the groove with things. As far as game tempo and stuff like that. I played last week, but each and every week for me in the preseason, it's an opportunity to get a little bit better, and to get back into that game routine and that game rhythm. So for me, I think it's a little different, from most vets. I think vets is just, like you said, it's a dress rehearsal. It's something that we haven't done in a while, as far as playing maybe first quarter, second quarter, and a little bit into the second half. Just getting used to the adjustments being made at halftime and things like that. So it's a lot that go into it. But again, for me, it's just about getting back out there, getting in the groove of things and things like that.
All right, Allen, we'll see what happens this year. Your first year in Chicago. Thanks for being with us this morning.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Allen.
Allen Robinson.
And,
they're going to need him.
It's an offense, and or Trey Burton they got over, as you mentioned, the tight end. Yep. This offense loves the tight end as well. That can especially run the middle of the field. You're bringing in Allen Robinson. Trubisky's second year here. You got a couple of good backs as well, very versatile backs. You get that O-line healthy again. And this is a team that I definitely think is on the rise. Not a ton of depth everywhere, so health is always a concern, which is a concern obviously for every team out there. But a team, new coach, new direction, looking to go obviously in a positive direction.
Yeah, and the other thing I've heard from people talking about the Bears and what they're going to do under Matt Nagy is you're going to see Tariq Cohen used a little bit like Tyreek Hill was in the Kansas City offense. They're going to find that the little scat back. They're going to find him all over the field.
Yeah, so, mismatches. I mean, that's what it's about.
Yep. We'll see what happens there going forward. It's going to be, I tell you, it's tough for the Bears because we know that with Aaron Rodgers, the Packers are always going to be in playoff contention. The Vikings, as we said in Love It or Show It, may have had the best offseason of any team, and they think they're a Super Bowl team. Matthew Stafford, if he can get a running game, he's played at MVP levels before. So as good as the things may be for the Bears, it's going to stack up very difficult about them. And so we'll see what happens going forward. All right, coming up, Urban Meyer has been suspended for 3 games. But what exactly was he suspended for? And we'll get your reactions to all of that.
Ow. Yep, you guessed it. I'm a speed bump, so I've got one job. I slow you down. So imagine how I feel about Geico, who does way more. Like, not only could they save you money on car insurance, but they've been around for over 75 years, giving people fast and friendly claim service. Ow. Plus, they got a nifty mobile app that gives you 24/7 access. Ow. Just doing my job, buddy.
Geico. Expect great savings and a whole lot more.
Oh, Canada. James Paxton, who hails from Ladner, British Columbia, threw a no-hitter Tuesday in Toronto.
We now have 3 no-hitters this year in 3 different countries.
That is crazy.
One in California.
And California's not a country, it's a state.
I mean,
the United States of America.
Don't we play Pettiest Show in America soundbite at this point?
The Pettiest Show in America!
You're welcome. Sports Center brought to you by Odor Eaters. It's summer, and we're all about to be very active and on our feet this season. So make sure you tackle foot odor before it starts with new Odor Eaters Charcoal Foot Scrub. Pick some up at Walmart, CVS, Kroger, or Dollar General. Start fresh, stay fresher with Odor Eaters.
All right, Golic and Wingo with you on ESPN Radio and ESPN News. Again, the big story all day has been the decision last night by Ohio State at that press conference to suspend both athletic director Gene Smith and head football coach Urban Meyer for the first 3 games of the season.
And I'll say this, when I first heard the presser last night, my initial thought was because they said basically that the reason that the 2 of those guys, Gene Smith and Urban Meyer, were suspended is they failed to take sufficient management action related to Zach Smith's misconduct in retaining an assistant coach who was not performing as an appropriate role model for Ohio State student athletes, permitting such misconduct continue is not consistent with the values of the universities and reflects poorly on it. So I thought, okay, if it's about that and only that, I thought you either fire or there's nothing.
Correct.
But remember, and I would encourage everybody, again, it's 23 pages, but if you want to be more educated on what this investigation turned up, you may want to read it, because this is going to be on Twitter all day. And I see a lot of tweets out there, and I can tell these people tweeting, it's not your fault. You maybe didn't know the report is out there, that you don't have the information that these 23 pages, which you can get and which you can print up and which you can read, it's going to help you have some more knowledge about this, of what this investigation was about. And I had said in the beginning, after hearing that and then starting the show this morning, that I thought, listen, if you're basing it on that, remember the order this happened. This was the Title IX coordinator first heard of the allegations from the police against Zach Smith. That person told Gene Smith, the AD. Gene Smith told the coach, Urban Meyer. So if we were basing this off, did Urban Meyer send it up the proper chain? Well, it got to him. It almost went in reverse order and got to him. So then what were you holding him responsible for was my question. But you read this article, there are some serious inconsistencies amongst,
for lack of a better term,
what the board thinks. And one of the, you want to play something?
No. Go finish up that point. Then
one of the things I heard was right at the end when Urban was asked about the text messages from his wife. What did you think of the text messages, from Shelly Meyer, his wife? And he said, I didn't know anything about them. And none of us could believe that. None of us were like, wait a minute. You're with your spouse for that long. You've had a relationship with this couple since 2009 where you tried to help them when the same thing was allegedly going on. And now we're to believe that she doesn't share texts with you?
Yeah. I mean, and he was asked about that at the press conference. Again, this report came out after the press conference. Otherwise, the press conference would have been completely different. So here is Urban addressing that specific point.
What message do you have for Courtney Smith?
Well, I have a message for everyone involved in this. I'm sorry that we're in this situation. And I'm just sorry we're in this situation.
What about Shelley's text messages? Why were you not concerned from her messages about this situation?
I was not aware of Shelley's text messages at the time.
Okay, so he said that. Now, imagine if everybody had this report before this press conference. Because on page 8 of the 23 pages reads this. This again from the investigation. Shelly Meyer also maintains that she did not relay Courtney Smith's expression of fear or allegations of abuse, including the photographs, to Urban Meyer at the time because she had doubts about the veracity of Courtney Smith's allegations. Coach Meyer also does not recall any discussion with Shelly Meyer about either her or Courtney Smith's concerns about abuse. Then it goes, and this is again the investigators. Given the closeness of their relationship and Shelly's concerns, We believe it's likely that Shelley and Urban Meyer had at least some communication about these allegations in late 2015 and were concerned about them. So imagine if they had this report the media did before, a first question would be, Urban, you just said that the investigators don't believe you.
They don't believe you. Right.
What say you about that? I mean,
Right.
there could have been a lot more questions, and that's just one of the things that, and another, when the story came out about this, and the director of football operations, August 1st, went to Urban Meyer on the practice field and said, hey, there's a bad article coming out about this. One of the first things Urban Meyer talked about was, can I get rid of my texts from that are over a year old? How do I get rid of them? I mean, wait a minute. That's one of the first things you talk about when you hear a bad article is coming out about you. So all of a sudden you read this report and you start going, oh man, you know what? It's a little more dirty than you think. So now I kind of understand. Maybe it wasn't to the point of firing again because of the winning percentage. If this was a 500 coach, he's gone. There's no question about that.
The more you can do, the longer you're going to
stay around. As I said, this is true in sports and this is true in life. The better you do, the more leash that you get. So those are some of the, now I start to think, yeah, there is a little bit of dirtiness or grayness to this where I can see it shouldn't be either a firing or nothing at all, and can see some sort of a suspension. I would encourage everybody who's really trying to have discussions on this, especially in the world of Twitter, to read this report.
Yes.
It will be a bit eye-opening to you.
Well, there's just a lot of things in there, and quite frankly, some of the things in that report, Mike, are also pretty confusing. When they sort of, for example, here's Mary Jo White, the Ohio State University lead investigator, sort of saying the two things that don't seem to be able to stick together.
We ultimately did not conclude that Coach Meyer deliberately lied during his comments at Big Ten Media Days on July 24th, 2018. He has consistently maintained that he did not recall in July 2018 what he knew in 2015 regarding the domestic violence investigation of Zach Smith by law enforcement. And we credit that Coach Meyer, in answering reporters' questions on July 24th, was closely focused on erroneous media reports that Zach Smith had been arrested on felony charges in 2015, which Coach Meyer had determined the night before not to have occurred. But his answers swept more broadly than the falsely reported arrest, and Coach Meyer falsely stated that he lacked knowledge of all relevant events regarding alleged domestic violence by Zach Smith in 2015. While those denials were plainly not accurate, Coach Meyer did not, in our view, deliberately lie.
Okay, I don't understand how that can be true.
That's
you can't say we concluded he did not deliberately lie, and then he said he made a false statement.
He falsely stated.
He falsely stated, but then we concluded that he did not falsely state on purpose.
Listen,
that's a hard one to get around.
I really think that this press conference and then reading this report, there are going to be people that are more confused than they were before. The bottom line of this is that there is a number 2 Urban Meyer's games, and that's 3 games. Zach Smith is no longer a coach. He is going to have to, I believe it's sometime in September, he has a court appearance about the situation with the alleged abuse against his ex-wife, Courtney Smith. So that part will get handled in court. He's no longer an employee there. Gene Smith has been suspended for those 3 weeks as well. This kind of sums it up, and this is in all caps by Marty. He didn't do anything wrong. So that is open interpretation to a whole lot of people, because I would ask you, Marty, what is your definition of what was wrong? Did he not do anything wrong as far as reporting the incident because it was reported to him, and what more could he do? Okay. Do you think he lied on media day? Do you think he lied about his text again?
Well, there's no question he lied on media day. The question is, did he do it deliberately? And that's what Ohio State investigator was saying.
Did he lie where the investigators don't even believe that he and Shelley didn't talk about the text? So if he lied there, so that's what I would ask, Marty, and for everybody. What's your definition of wrong?
Yeah.
Wrong enough to suspend for 3 games, not enough wrong that nothing should have happened, or enough wrong to fire him. That's where it's going to come down. So, Marty, I'm not throwing anything against you. I just think your line really says it all. He didn't do anything wrong. And now it comes down to, as each of you look into this, what do you think the degree of how wrong he may have been? Not wrong at all? Guilty of something, or guilty of a whole lot?
Look, again, read the report.
Yes.
It's right there.
Yeah.
If you really want to have an understanding of what the committee found, go and read the document. It's out there for you to digest. And I think from a PR perspective, Ohio State made sure that look, they did not want that report